Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session. And in this session, we will look into the more details of the JavaScripting. So here we will see where does JavaScript go. Means where we JavaScript will be located, where we can include the JavaScript in our HTML document. So there are basically three different places we can put the JavaScript. JavaScript can be linked to an HTML page in these three different ways. Either we can have the scripting code as an inline, or we can have it as an embedded, and we can have it as an external file. Suppose inline. So inline JavaScript refers to the practice of including JavaScript code directly within certain HTML attributes. Inline JavaScript is real maintenance nightmare. So here is the example where we can directly include the JavaScript. Here you can see JavaScript, and we are trying to open a window that is included in the anchor HTML element. And this is the input, type is button. When we click on the button, there is some event is called as a on click event. So whenever you have a control like this, you have already seen the input type as a button. So how it will be displayed on the web page, you already know. You will see a button on the web page, and there is a certain events that can be associated with that particular element. One of the property is the on click. So it is kind of a listener. It will listen to the on click, means whenever the user will click on that button, it will execute some. Right now we have the script here, or we can execute, we can call some JavaScript function, and we can do some activity. If you remember submit button will submit the form to the server. Similarly, the different buttons that you have, we can include the on click event, and we can do certain activity when that particular button is clicked. For this example, what it will do is, we have this script here, alert. We call the alert function, are you sure? Means what it will do is, it will pop up a window with the content as are you sure. So this is a very simple inline JavaScript code. So even though we can include JavaScript as inline, it is not recommended. So it should be discouraged, because it causes a big maintenance headache. So if it is a very simple application, maybe it will make sense. But if you work on a very complex projects, okay, very large projects, having inline is not a right kind of a solution, right? We should not be using the inline JavaScript. So I will show you the example for the inline. Okay, this is the code. First I will show you the code, the same code what you have seen in the presentation, that is included. And this is the HTML document. Inside the body, I have the two elements, anchor and the input. So JavaScript open window, nothing is getting open, we are not calling anything, so nothing will happen. So this button, for button we have included uh, this alert. Okay, when you click on that button, it will display a pop-up message will come up. I will run this code. So you can see here more info, that is the this is the anchor element. And when you click on that, you can just see here bottom it will show the JavaScript open window. And this is the button. We did not give any name for that button, so that's why it is empty. If you click on that, we have set the on click. Okay, I'm clicking. So on click, you will get a a display message. Okay, so just if you want to change the text, you can, whatever you include in this text, that will be displayed. I'll reload the page, click on the button. Are you really sure? So this is how it will display. That is inline. And second way of having the JavaScript is a embedded JavaScript refers to the practice of placing JavaScript code within a script element. We have the script element. This is the opening script and the closing script element. Inside this opening and the closing script element, you can include all the JavaScript programming. So here we have script type is text forward slash JavaScript. Then we have a comment inside, a JavaScript comment, and in JavaScript also, similar to other languages, the comments can be created using a forward slash asterisk, and comments can be closed using the asterisk and the forward slash. Then we have a same alert here. Okay, basically alert will pop up a window and display this particular message. Now we are having this as a this code as inside the a script. I will show you the code for that. This is embedded. So you can see the head section. Inside the head section, I have the script. So this is the script, and uh, type is equal to text or a JavaScript, and we have the alert. Now what happens is whenever the page gets loaded, the browser will execute all the scripts which are present here, and here what we have is a just alert, so it will pop up a window. I will click on JS embedded HTML, the code. So as soon as it loads the HTML, it will execute the JavaScript. So then you can see the button. So we have the button here. Okay, inside the body, even before it renders the page, it will execute the JavaScript. So if I refresh, you can see I'm reloading. Whenever the page gets loaded, this JavaScript will get executed first. And right now you are seeing this as a web page as blank. It has not painted the button yet. When I say OK, then you will see the web page getting painted. Then that is the embedded JavaScript is the second option. The third option or the most preferred option is the external JavaScript. Means what? You can have all the JavaScript code inside a separate, totally a separate file, and the file extension should be .js. Okay, JavaScript files should be having an extension of .js. JS stands for the JavaScript. JavaScript supports this separation by allowing links to an external file that contains the JavaScript. By convention, JavaScript external files have the extension .js. Okay, so this is most preferred way. The reason being, you can keep the JavaScript separate from the HTML document. So similarly, we saw for the CSS also. If the best way to have a CSS is as an external file, so that way we will have the styling is separated from the HTML and it is separated from the JavaScript. So all these things will be in a separate file. Maintenance wise, it will be very easy. And if you want to later, if any application changes you want to make, then it will be very easy. If the change is related to the styling, then you will be directly working on the CSS files. If it is related to the HTML structure, document structure, you will work on the HTML file. If it is related to the JavaScript, then you will look into the JavaScript file. This is the example. Inside the header section, I have script, type is equal to text forward slash JavaScript. SRC source is equal to greeting.js. So this is the assumption that whenever you are giving a source, you should be aware where this file will be present. So you already know the absolute path and the relative path. According to that, you should give the path wherever you are keeping your JavaScript. This file, the HTML should be able to find this JavaScript. Then this is the opening tag, and this is the closing tag inside the head section of the HTML document. Here is the code for that. Okay, so right now I may not be having that code. I will just create and I will show it in the next class. Okay. That is nothing but we are going to have an external file with a .js extension, and we will have the same code, whatever I showed you for the inline and the embedded. Same thing can be put inside the JavaScript file, and we can call that file. And execution wise, it is same thing. Whenever the page is getting loaded, it will load the JavaScript first. Okay, it will execute the JavaScript, and then it will execute the rest of the document. Advanced inclusion in production sites. Advanced techniques are used. Generate embedded styles to reduce the request code still managed in an external file. So here, okay, so some of the advanced technique that are used for inclusion that will generate the embedded styles that will reduce the request, and in that case also the file, the whatever the code that is present, it will be managed in the external file. And iframe loading, this is one of the element that we can use. Then asynchronous load from another JavaScript file. uh, if you want, we can do the asynchronous loading from the another JavaScript file. So that way the calls would be like whenever your page is loading, you are not required to execute all the JavaScript, so it will be based on asynchronous calls. So that's way we will have a faster initial load. JavaScript syntax. We will cover the fundamentals of JavaScript language, and this will cover everything, but it would be in a very brief description. And the reason for that is like whatever the syntax we have, whatever the definitions we have for the various components of the programming, it is very similar to the other languages. We can easily correlate and we can understand. So these are the most common programming constructs: variables, assignments, conditionals, loops, and arrays. Before moving on to the advanced topics such as events and classes, we will look into this. JavaScript's reputation for being quirky not only system from its strange way of implementing object-oriented principle, but also from some odd syntactic gotchas. So if you see the implementation of the object-oriented principle, we will see it a little later. It is not as usual as you have seen in other programming languages like Java or Python. The way object-oriented principles implemented is different. And next is everything is type sensitive, including function, classes, and variable names. So everything is a type sensitive here. So whatever functions you have, classes you have, variables name, The scope of variables in blocks is not supported. This means variable declared inside a loop may be accessible outside of the loop, counter to what one would expect. So this is one of the other issue. The scope of the variables, unlike in other programming languages, the scope is restricted to a certain block. Okay, and beyond that block, the scope of that variable will not be there. For example, in any programming languages like Java or C, if we have a block, let us say for loop, and inside the for loop you have declared the integer, like say int I is equal to 0. Okay, this integer I, the scope is only inside that particular for loop. It will not be outside the for loop. But in case of a JavaScript, that scope can be outside the loop. And there is triple equal, three equals operator, which tests not only for equality but type equivalence. So this operator, it checks for the equality as well as the type of the particular data. Null and undefined are two distinctly different states for a variable. So null is different and undefined is different for a variable. Undefined means that particular variable is not defined. Null means if defined, it is having a value of null. And semicolons are not required but are permitted and encouraged. So in line with the other languages, we can have the semicolons at the end of the each statement. There is no integer type, only number, which means floating point rounding errors are prevalent even with the values intended to be integers. So we have only the number here. We do not have the floating point inverse of the number. Okay, so that's why we can have a floating point rounding errors. Next one is variables. Variables in JavaScript are dynamically typed. So what is dynamically typed? The type is not checked at the time of the compilation. It is checked at the time of the runtime. So we need not specify the data type, similar to Python. Variables in JavaScript are dynamically typed, meaning a variable can be an integer and then later a string and then later an object if so desired. So it based on what value you are storing, the object will be changed accordingly. We need not specify what type it should be at the time of the compilation. This simplifies variable declaration so that we do not require familiar type fields like int, char, and string. Instead, we use the where. Okay, so var is used for defining a variable. So you need not specify what type it is. Whatever the value you store in that, it will take that type. Suppose if you store it as an integer, it will be an integer. If you store string, it will be a string type. Assignment can happen at declaration time by appending the value to the declaration, or at runtime with a simple right to left assignment. So assignment can be done at the time of the declaration, or it can be done at the runtime. So here you can see variable X is defined. So you are defining a variable X. So you can correlate with any other language. It is very similar. We need not worry too much about how to define. Here Y is defined, and also it is initialized with the value of 0. Again, this value is assigned at the runtime. Y is equal to 4. Conditional assignment. This is the conditional assignment. X is equal to, so y equals 4. This is the condition, and if it is a true, so if you remember the question mark and colon operator, okay, the question mark and colon operator, this is if you remember, it is we have unary, binary, and ternary operators. This is the ternary operators where there are three operands. The first one would be the condition, and if this condition is true, this is what the value will be, and if this condition is false, this is the value, y is not 4. So if y is equal to 4, then this would be y is 4, and if this condition is not true, then y is not 4 is the value that will be assigned to x. Here are the operators. Two equal signs, that is equals, then x equal 9. So for example, we have stored already the value of x as a 9. So if you say x equals 9, it is true. Okay, it will just check the value. So we have another operator. If you see here, here if you say x is equal to 9, then it is true. Then x is equal to inside the double quotes. Inside the double quotes is normally a text or a string or a character. This is also considered as a value and it will return true. But if you use three equal signs, so this is the operator three equal signs. If I say x equals and inside the double quote 9, it will give a false. The reason being, it will check for the value equality as well as the type equality. The left hand side, it is a number type, and on the right hand side it is a string type. So that is why it will result a false. Now if you see x equal 9, now both are numbers, that's why it will result as a true. Then we have less than and greater than. X less than 5 is false because x is 9. 9 less than 5 is false. Then we have less than equal to greater than equal to, which is same like other languages. X value is 9. 9 less than equal to 9, that is true. This is not equal, exclamation equal sign, not equal. 4 not equal to x. X is 9. 4 is not equal to 9, that is true. Not equal in either value or type. So you can see here, x not equal, there are two equal signs. It will make sure it is not equal in value or type, then only it will say true, otherwise it will say false. Now here x not equal, then inside the double quotes I have 9. Now x value is 9, and it is not equal to this value, which is false. They are equal, right? But the answer is true. The reason being, this x is a number not equal to string, that is true. Okay, so it has resulted in the answer as true. Now if you see here, x not equal to 9, this is false because 9 not equal, okay, that is false. They are equal, and number not equal to number, that is false. So it will check for both the value as well as type. So here both the and type exactly same as this one, that's why it is giving the answer as false. But in this case, even though the number is same, the types are different, that's why it will result in true. Then logical operators, and and the symbols are listed here. Exactly, they are represented with their this 2 ampersand sign represents the and operator, pipe sign represents the or, exclamation sign represents the not. These are truth table for the and. We know that if if both the values are true, then only it is true. If any of the values are false, then it is false. So true. If any value is false, then it is. And if any condition is true, then the result will be true. Both are true. Here this one is true, here this one is true. That's why these are true. When both are false, then only it is false. And this is the complement, not. True becomes false, false becomes true. Conditionals. JavaScript's syntax is that of PHP, Java or C. When it comes to condition, in the syntax, the condition to test is contained within the parenthesis brackets with the body contained in the curly braces. Okay, so this is similar to many languages. You can see the example here. We have a variable declared here. Variable, our name of the variable is hour of day semicolon. One more variable declared green. If hour of day greater than 4 and hour of day less than 12, then you will say greeting is equal to good morning. Means if it is greater than 4, hour of the day is the fourth hour. That is the fourth hour, means early morning, and up to the noon. 12 is the noon. Greeting would be like good morning. Else, if the hour is greater than equal to 12 and hour of the day less than 20, it would be good afternoon. Otherwise, it would be good evening. One second. Okay, sorry for that. So conditional statements, this would be exactly similar. This is the condition we have, and we are checking this condition, hour of the day greater than 4, and so and means if both conditions are true, then only the greeting will be assigned with a good morning value. And if this condition is false, means it is not greater than 4 and less than 12, then it will check whether the hour of the day is greater than equal to 12 and less than 20. Then it will assign a greeting of good afternoon. You can see else if we are going to use, and for the condition same parenthesis we are going to use, and curly braces will have whatever the else if it is coming here, and if this is a true, then this block will be executed. And if this condition is false, then we have else, then we have this block. Okay, inside that we are setting the value as good evening. Loops, similar to other languages, we can use the loops. We have the loops are provided. If we have to do any repetitive operation, the loops can be used. Loop like conditionals, loop use these brackets, parentheses and curly braces, blocks to define condition. This is for the condition, and this is for the body of the loop. You will encounter the while and the for loops. While loops normally initialize a loop control variable before the loop, use it in the condition and modify it within the loop. So it is very similar to what we have studied already about the while loop. Here you can see initialization of a variable I is equal to 0, var I is equal to 0. Then we have the condition. While is the keyword that is used for the looping. Inside this parenthesis, I less than 10, and this is the start of the body. This is the curly brace is the close of the body of the loop. So inside we will have all the statements which we want to repeatedly execute. So in this case, we are checking I less than 10. I value initially is 0. So 0 less than 10 true. Whenever this condition is true, it will execute the this particular body of the loop, that is I plus plus. What we are doing is we are incrementing the value of the I. So I will become now 1. Again it will test the condition 1 less than 10 true. It will increment I to 2 and so on. It will go until I value becomes 10. Okay, so when I is 9, 9 less than 10 true, it will execute the condition. Now inside I value become 10. So 10 less than 10, which is false. So that is the end of this loop. So it will come to the end of the while statement. Whatever is the statement next to the while will start getting executed. For loops, a for loop combines the common components of a loop initialization, condition, and post loop operation into one statement. This statement begins with the for keyword and has a component placed between brackets, okay, parenthesis brackets, semicolon, separated shown below. Okay, this is very similar to other for loop window, but for inside the brackets we have we either you can initialize here or you can initialize before var I is equal to 0. This is initialization. Then you are putting the semicolon, then you are checking the condition I less than 10, then semicolon I plus plus, then loop of uh, uh, the for loop. Okay, body of the loop, that is inside the pair of curly parentheses. So here whatever is required we will do it. Now this loop basically there is no statement. It is uh, exactly similar to this one what we are seeing. We are not doing anything. So first it will check I is equal to initialize I is equal to 0, then it will check the condition 0 less than 10, which is true. It will come inside no statement, then it will increment the i's value to 1. 1 less than 10 true, it will execute the body. Basically nothing is there. Again increment the value, I will become 2. 2 less than 10, again it will execute the body, and so on until I reaches a value of 10. When it reaches a value of 10, 10 less than 10 is a false, and it will come out of the for loop. Functions. Functions are the building block for a modular code in JavaScript. So functions are used for the one biggest reason to make the your project, your application modular. Okay, what is a modular? You can have your project or the application divided into different modules, and that modular structure can be brought using the functions. And same thing is in JavaScript. We can use the functions to create the modular code, and even used to build pseudo classes, which we will learn later. They are defined by using a reserved word function and then function name and optional parameters. Since JavaScript is dynamically typed, function do not require return type, nor do the parameters require the type. Because JavaScript is dynamically typed, we need not specify what is the return type, or we need not specify what are the parameter types. Okay, what is the data type? We need not specify. This is the example. So this is the function to raise x to the yth power, might be defined like this. Just you will have the keyword function. You need not specify what is the return value. Function, name of the function power, then inside the bracket I have the parameter. So we need not specify the type x comma y. This is the opening bracket of the function, and this is the closing bracket. This is the body of the function. Inside we have one variable declared, power is equal to 1, Then we have the for loop. Basically what this function is raise x to the yth power, means x raised to y. When it is x raised to y, you are going to multiply x y times, isn't it? So that is the implementation here. So initially power is equal to 1, and variable, this is the for loop, variable I is equal to 0, I less than y. So we are going to multiply it y times, right? Because we are starting from 0, so that's why we are taking I less than y. Then I plus plus, initially what is the value of the power? 1. 1 into, let us say this is 4 and this is 3. Just for the simple sake we will take 4 and 3. So it is as good as 4 raised to 3, which is means what? 4 into 4 into 4. 4 is multiplied 3 times. So this value is 3. Initially it is 0. Power is equal to 1 into 4. So we have 4. I will become 1. Again, this power is 4 now. 4 into 4. Okay. I will become 2. 2 less than 3. True. Again it will come. Now this power is 4 into 4. Okay. Actually 16 will be there. Just for our understanding, 4 into 4. Then into 4. I value becomes 3. 3 less than 3, false. So now this has, what is the value of the POW variable now? 4 into 4 into 4, whatever the value is stored in that power variable, and then return power. So it will return, whoever calls this power function, it will return that value. For example, you can call the function like that, power 2 comma 10. This will return 2 raised to 10, that is 2 multiplied 10 times. Alert, already we saw this alert function, right? With our simple inline JavaScript implementation. The alert function makes the browser show a pop-up to the user with whatever is passed being the message displayed. The following JavaScript code displays a simple hello world message in a pop-up. So alert, and whatever you want to display in that pop-up message, that can be given in the as a parameter. Using alerts can get tedious. Using alerts can get tedious fast when using debugger tools in your browser. You can write output to the log with console.log, put message here, and then use the debugger to access those logs. Okay, so what is the biggest advantage of using alert? Is like a debugging purpose, right? You have a code, you have written a page of code, and you have included JavaScript, and for some reason uh, something is not working the way you wanted, and for the debugging purpose you can use the alert. So alert, you can display the text, you can display the value of the variable, so that you will, suppose you are doing some calculation and answer is not coming correct. So at various stages of the JavaScript you use the alert and display the value. Okay, for example, if you want to display the value, this is not calculating correct, every after every calculation you expect the answer should be like this, use alert and display that value. If it is not showing, then you will come to know there is some problem. But this using alert for simple applications, it is recommended. But if you are using a if you are working on a very larger products, then this is not a good idea, using so many alerts inside the program. Then we can log the messages. So console.log, and using the debugger we can access the log files, and from the log files we can see like what is happening, what is the program flow, whether it is as per your expectation or not. We can check from the log files. Errors using the try and catch block. So already you know the exception handling. In many languages exception handling happens. For example, Java. Okay, exception handling. Why do we need to have a exception handling in place? What is the advantages it will give us? That you already understand. So we don't want the our applications to fail randomly, right? It just at certain points it fails with the no clue, with the error posted on the web page. That is not a good scenario. To avoid that, we whatever the code we are writing, expecting potential problems, we can have a try block and we can have the catch block, and we can gracefully handle those situations. For example, let us say you have a piece of code where you are opening a file. Okay, you are opening the file and you are going to write into the file. Suppose let us say that file doesn't exist. If you don't put the try block, suddenly the program will fail at that point with no clue, right, why it is failing. Because the file doesn't exist, that's why you are getting that. So if you use the try block, and if file doesn't exist, it will raise an exception, and in the catch block you catch that exception. Then you will come to know, okay, the file is not available. Then you can, in the exception, either you create the file, or you whatever the alternatives you want to do, or you want to stop the program gracefully, or give user friendly messages to the user. All those can be done using the try and catch block. When browser's JavaScript engine encounters an error, it will throw an exception. These exceptions interrupt the regular sequential execution of the program and can stop the JavaScript engine altogether. However, you can optionally catch these errors, preventing disruption of the program using try and catch block. So basically, you don't want to have a sudden errors and sudden stoppage of your application, right? Without knowing what has happened, it would be very difficult. So that's why whenever you are writing a code, you should have a try block, and you should anticipate what kind of issues can happen, and accordingly you can have a specific exception can be handled. And if you are not aware of specific exceptions, then you can catch the generic exceptions or generic exception, and you can provide a generic solutions. For example, here try non-existent function hello. So it's a non-existent function. Then it will give a error because this function doesn't exist. You are catching that exception here. And once you are inside the so what happens if the try and catch block is not there? Whenever it encounters the program, your program stops abruptly, right? It halts abruptly. This is the end of your program without any reason. And sometimes it will throw some kind of a weird errors on the web browser, not user friendly. User will not have a clue what kind of a error or what is happening there. But if you have a try block and if you catch that, then you can say alert, exception was caught. Then you are displaying a message on the screen with that particular error. What kind of a error is there? It is displayed onto the browser as a pop-up window. Throw your own. So similar like in Java programming, we can throw our own exception. So either whatever is thrown here, uh, in this case, whenever this error occurs, a certain kind of a exception is thrown, okay, by the system. Here, if you want to throw your own exception, we can do that also. Although try catch can be used exclusively to catch built-in JavaScript errors, it can also be used by your programs to throw your own messages. The throw keyword stops normal sequential execution, just like the built-in exception. Now, what you are doing here, we have a try block, we have a variable x is equal to -1. So let us say you don't want the value to be less than 1, less than 0 in this case. If x is less than 0, then you are throwing a error smaller than 0 error. So x value is what? -1. So if -1 less than 0, that is true, it will throw. Your program will end here, right? And it will throw this error, and this exception will be caught by the catch block. So catch block will catch it, and it will say smaller than 0 error was thrown. You're just putting that text error plus you're giving the you are appending with was thrown. Try, catch, and throw statements should be used for abnormal or exceptional cases in your program. Throwing an exception disrupts the sequential execution of a program. When the exception is thrown, all subsequent code is not executed until the catch statement is reached. This reinforces why try catch is for exceptional cases. So what happens is, let us say this is you are throwing the error. Let us say there are internal problem here, and the rest of the code is there. After this, there is a more code. Whenever the error is thrown, the execution stops here. It will not execute the rest of the code. From here, the directly control will go to the catch block. JavaScript objects, we will see it in the next class.